Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be talking all about Dune Prophecy with actor Chris Mason and Kai Fung Rieck, who's the fight coordinator on the series. And Chris, in starting with you and talking a little bit about how you developed Kieran Atreides as a character, I was curious about it because it's basically developing him as an individual character, but then there's also so much history and backstory that comes with his family as well. And I was interested in how you kind of looked at both who he is as an individual, but also kind of like the history and the lore that goes into it, because the scripts also give us a lot of details about things that his dad really instilled in him, and you can kind of really see that legacy coming into play.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? It's a really unique role in terms of, sometimes if you're playing a role, for example, like if you were playing Paul Atreides in the movies, you've got the books there and it's all there on the page, right? So you have so much to kind of guide you and your performance and the story is there for you. But to have so much backstory, but also be creating a new character is a really kind of interesting kind of place to be as an actor because like a lot of it is there for you. And I think with the books, what we garnered from that was, obviously what happened with his father and Vorian Atreides, who was the great war hero uncle, or great great uncle of him, who won the war against the robots. So that informed a lot. And then being able to kind of look into like inherited trauma and inherited PTSD. And then also just what makes an Atreides, loyalty to his family and what drives him going forward. And I think you see in Kieran a guy who is probably still trying to work it out in terms of exactly where he lands in this place, but someone who's not afraid to follow his heart and really work hard to kind of to follow that.
Yeah, I love those details. And Kai, in terms of talking about the fight coordinating, so much of it is about really figuring out the individual style of each character. And so when you were looking at kind of creating all of these entities that are really individual, but also having worked on the second Dune movie recently as well, what were some of the ways in which you wanted this to feel very separate and very individual, but also what were some of those little threads and connections that you wanted to create as well?
So the thing is, for the there's already a fighting style in the movies established, and but this plays like 10,000 years before. So we thought also the style should not be the same because in 10,000 years a lot of things can happen. So we should still have like the same shapes, but with like a little variation of each technique, but still look like the same style. So we had like the Atreides style, the Harkonnen style, the Corino style, um, the Sardaukar style, and that was kind of interesting. And of course, each cast member brings its own, let's say, move set with them. So whatever feels natural, plus the Atreides style we already established in Dune Part One and Two. Uh, yeah, it was kind of like a finding process with each character, with each cast member. Sorry, and yeah, to create it was like a process with all in everyone involved. Let's say we cannot create a style without an actor, so it's very hard. So when we met Chris and Sarah, so we really could find that way how they want to move on the end, yeah.
And when the two of you first started working together in preparation for this, what was some of the early conversations or details that you figured out in terms of, this is someone who's a sword master who's been training, since childhood and is very, very skilled at his position. And so how did you start figuring out what is this fight style going to look like for this character together?
So first, luckily, I was also involved in Dune Part Two. So we gave him like the same training as for Timothy Chalamet, the same move set, and then we from there we kind of developed our own little thing from that base. Yeah, we had like so we could see what Chris brings from himself to this style, and that looks a little bit more unique for him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one conversation we had as well is like in terms of looking at the series as a whole, the first kind of two fight coordinations we had with the episode one and two with the training sequences with Nez, and it's like Kieran is this sword master guy, so the way he fights in that he's not trying to he's not trying to kill Nez, he's not showing off, he's not he's training her, so he's making it difficult for her, but for him it's still an easy kind of workout for him to be able to get that. He's well ahead of the game, he's a step ahead all the time. And then being able to later on in the season, episode 5 and 6, going into, okay, this is Kieran the soldier fighting for his life. Like, it kind of almost like and it was with a different sword. We went from short sword to long sword. So being able to kind of like use that and stretch that out a bit I'd say that was a lot more fun, being able to go through six stunt guys all the time. That was the more fun part.
No, and it's such a great point in terms of just the training that he's doing with Inez and Kai. What was the difference that you wanted to feel between the level that you wanted Chris to get to and the skill set that you wanted to show, and then with Sarah Sophie, who's playing Princess Inez, having her be very skilled and someone who takes her training very seriously, but obviously still isn't going to be quite as good and as kind of skilled as him because she's training underneath him.
So yeah, the thing is, she's also training in secret with the Bene Gesserit, so she has her own little moves as well, without Kieran to know that. And later in the story, he finds out that, hey, actually she trained already a different style with the Bene Gesserit with a knife. And yeah, for Kieran, we had a little funny thing because he has his own sword, but we somehow never used it because
Not once.
story-wise, it was written out that he's using an Sardaukar sword or something. So we trained with his sword, but then later on we just recognized actually he's never using his own sword. So, and his own sword was different, so it was kind of tricky sometimes to find out how the sword's gonna move, gonna work, because it has a different handle, and with the other handle we could not spin it so well. So yeah, it was interesting.
Chris, one of the scenes that I love very early on is with you and Sarah Sophie, and Inez is having that moment of, I don't want to talk about things right now, and he's like, okay, great, then like let's work it out, on the mat essentially, and they're going through this whole sequence of training pieces, and I was interested in how you both went into a scene like that where it's about communicating through movement rather than through dialogue.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because you kind of have to reverse engineer it. You almost have to, me and Sarah Sophie started off going, 0 miles an hour into the choreography because safety comes first. And, Kai had warned us that when you get to set, your adrenaline kicks in and and you go a little faster than you think you are because you're performing. And that's when accidents can happen. So it was all about like us setting in the kind of choreography. And we worked on that one for, it was maybe a month or 2 months, like near the beginning of shooting. And got to set and felt perfectly safe in the choreography. But also, I think we'd also had a rehearsal with John, the director of that episode, on that scene. And I think what's great about all the scenes, the stunts that we did, there was story around them. It wasn't just like a stunt for a stunt's sake or a fight for a fight's sake. There was always something, like our first training session, that we were establishing that there was a connection between them. So it was a little more playful, and there was moments in there where you could get a look, and that was nice to be able to factor in. But that second one, she's in a different place, and I think Kieran senses that, and it was great to be able to use the emotion in that scene. I think especially for the way she moves and the way she was fighting, a little bit more erratic, and she's coming at me a little faster, and she's not getting any further, any closer, because that's not how you're trained to fight, So I'd say the emotional stuff definitely comes after because you want to hold that in, but it was also great being able to do that and then go straight into the scene, which was like a 2-page scene that we had, So um, Sarah Sophie's fantastic, both at stunts and acting. So I didn't really have to do much for that scene. I was just kind of playing off her.
I also think it's such a great point that you just made of, there's no stunt work and there's no sequences that are there just for the sake of it. It's all about moving the story forward or telling us something about the emotions of a character. And, Kai, I was interested in kind of how you work with the story and work with the scripts and really figure out, that same idea of how am I communicating story and emotion for these characters? Because it's not just about the sequences and making it look impressive on screen. There's always a reason for every movement.
So yeah, when we develop fighting scenes or action sequence, we also ask what is the motivation of the character. So why are they fighting? What is the purpose of the fight? Let's say, of course, in a training fight, the purpose is just to train. But also then, okay, it is Kieran Atreides and it's Ines, and they have like a love interest somehow, but more in secret. So how can we define that in a fight? So let's say we have some special moments, and maybe during the training, one of them loses control of their emotions and make a more romantic move instead of a fighting move. But we try to hide it inside martial arts kind of way to do this. So we had, especially in the first one, when Kieran pulled her with a knife and from the back, and she's standing there with the sword on their throat, and they have a look, they exchange a look, and you can see it's not really threatening because you for sure he will not kill her, and she is also more like enjoying it, like, oh, it's kind of interesting what happened here. So we also always try to find a way not to just, let's say, make moves, instead of what can we tell with the moves, what brings the story forward. So yeah, this is always what we try to do.
Yeah, it's
and of course, if it looks fancy as well, even better, of course.
Chris, as well for you in terms of the relationship dynamic between Inez and between Kieran, you know, at the beginning it kind of starts as this like magnetic attraction, and there's the idea of, you know, she's engaged to the 9-year-old that she's set to marry originally, and she's going to be leaving, and so they're not actually going to be in each other's paths. And then suddenly when they're still together, it really changes everything. And, you know, I think they're both people who don't trust easily, but yet they start to really open up to each other. And I was interested in how the two of you really just found those beats, or how you found those moments of feeling like, actually, even though logically he doesn't want to open up to this person and trust them, he is going to.
Yeah, I think we talked a lot, and especially with Alison, about like what is it? Obviously, in the first episode, there's an attraction. They know that. They're happy with that. They're both young. They're both precarious, you know. And then they see each other in the spice den, and it's a very kind of easy transactional kind of, hey, look, I'm going to be out of here. We won't see each other. Great. Like, I think during that night, they probably didn't expect to have such a connection in terms of their intimacy and stuff like that. And then as things transpire and they have the chance to become closer, you know, Inez opens up to Kieran in a way that he didn't expect, and I think she didn't expect either. And they start to figure out as the series goes on that their hearts are aligned in terms of maybe their morals and kind of what they both stand for and want to fight for. And I think it goes quite quickly, at least for Kieran. This is kind of how I always thought of it, quite quickly from like an infatuation into something much stronger. And that's why in episode 4, when he's, you know, he changes his mind and closes the grates and to stop what he thought the thinker machine would be coming out of, because he hears her voice and he sees her, and he can't do that. That was his line in terms of the whole rebellion. His line was her. So, you know, and they go on, and in the end she saves him too. So it's, you know, I think their connection is stronger. And me and Sarah Sophie always talked about how it's this relationship is terribly timed, as relationships often are. You know, you're just about to do something, you're just about to conquer something in your life, and then you fall in love, and it comes along and ruins some things. So yeah, that was kind of one of the dynamics we played with.
Did you find that that also gave you a lot of space to kind of play with that just internal battle of logic versus emotion? Because logically, he knows exactly what his path is. And this is something that he has been steadfast about for years. But then obviously the emotion kind of starts to come to the foreground more than he would like initially.
Yeah, absolutely. As an actor, you want conflict. You know, you never want your character to be steadfast in exactly what they're doing, and it'd be too easy for them. And you never want them to be too passive either. So, being able to see Kieran's conflict, so almost so black and white, you know, but also so high stakes on both sides. That was great to be able to dive into, and you know, it was all there in the scripts from Alison. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Kai, I was also interested in your relationship with the show directors on the series as well, and just kind of the understanding or knowledge that's helpful for you to have as a fight coordinator in terms of how they're filming sequences. Because I saw an interview where you were talking about your work on Warrior, and you know some of the more complex scenes you would kind of know, okay, this is how they're planning to come in and shoot it. And I was interested if that was the case for any of the scenes in this series as well.
Yeah, so how we approach a scene is always we read the script and then we talk to the directors, because of course if you read a script you have a own vision in your head, and then we try to confirm you have the same vision or not, and then we talk with all the producers, directors, and all the special wishes from maybe some cast members have wishes for their scene. Hey, maybe can we have that moment? Can we create the moment for, like, I don't know, where we have like intense look or whatever, or we kind of feel that someone is under pressure more or whatever. So we we try to always put all the information together, all the informations we have, and then we put it together, and then we shoot a previs with the stunt team only. This is how we approach it, and then we send the previs to the director, and then the director gives us more notes. Yeah, it's in the right direction, or it's completely wrong, or it's exactly what we want to do, or maybe we can add something like this, or can we do the same with longer shots or more cuts, or and then of course we always discuss how much time we have on the day, because if they gave us only like 2 hours, and yeah, we have to do like master shots here and cover everything, and that's not the way you should shoot it, I would say. But time is always against you. And of course, there's more information we have in the foreground from the directors or producers is always helpful. But yeah, normally we try to gather all information from director producers, and we are always in contact with them.
Did you also get much in terms of knowledge and information about the costumes? Because I feel like costumes have so much input on how actors are moving, and especially when it comes to stunt and fight sequences, they have to think very specifically about how is the fabric going to move in a sequence in an emotion like this. And I was interested if that was something that you kind of also had crossover in terms of knowing what is it going to look like. So how is that going to impact the way that they're able to move or the types of moves that we can do?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yes, we do. We do like cooperation with costume and props, and sometimes one of these things is not ready yet, or they don't know because they don't have. They have to wait for the information as well from producers, directors. And once that costume is finished, we can train in the costume. We ask always the cast and the stunt guys as well. Hey, can you train in the costume? What is the issue? And because stunts we can always like fights we can always change quicker than like 200 costumes, let's say. So in the end we ask everyone, hey, can you perform that? How is it going to feel? And is there something what's not comfortable? Maybe we can talk to the costume, or if worst case we have to change it, because safety should always be on first position. And let's say if the shoes are too dangerous, then we have to kick out some moves or ask for a stunt version of the costume.
I love that detail so much. And also for you, Chris, I've heard that one of the things that you looked at specifically in terms of the disciplines of Kieran that was helpful to you was Korean Hapkido training, and particularly when it comes down to the relationship that a sensei has with people that they're training. And I was curious how that helped you to step into and find some of the aspects of Kieran as a character.
Yeah, so the Hapkido training is very different from what we did in the show. But it was great to be able to see how the sensei kind of worked with his level of discipline. And I kind of, I did enjoy the training a lot. And, sometimes he'd be hitting me with these big sticks and teaching me if I did something wrong, he would hit me in the leg and it would hurt a lot. But I was like, okay, like this is the level of discipline. There's no messing around. There's, it's all about doing things right and precise. And I think we managed to incorporate little bits of that into the one of the training sequences with Nez, where she goes for a kind of messy swipe at him, and he manages to clear her and then kind of give her a little tap on the back as if to say, hey, like that was too easy. So it was nice to be able to have that. And when they released the press release and it said Chris Mason's playing Kieran Atreides, the sword master, and I was like, okay, that's out there now. I better be good at that. I tried to seek out as much as I could, but I'll be honest, when we started day one with Kai and the rest of the crew, we were a long way off, very slow, very robotic, and I'm very thankful for Kai's patience and the rest of the team with us, because I felt like by the end of shooting, I got to a place where I was really comfortable with it and like really enjoyed the training. And hopefully, it looked pretty good.
It looks great. And, Kai, one of the things I think is so impressive about the work that you do is that you're always looking at a mixture of different styles and disciplines and approaches, depending on what feels like the right fit for the project. And for Dune Prophecy in particular, I was interested in what were some of the different disciplines that you found yourself really connecting to or feeling like were the right fit for this story.
So what I like to do is we have like a stunt boot camp where we train not specifically directly for the film or for the show from the start on. So first we do like we meet the actors and see what did they do, what did they know already. Let's say Chris already did some Hapkido training, or some of them had already like judo or karate background or kickboxing, whatever. And then we try to increase the level of their knowledge. So and on the same time we build the same base. So let's say for me, very important, everyone should know how to fall, let's say. So falling is for me the most important thing, not even for movies, just in general. If you know how to fall, you can save so many doctor's appointments. And so first what we do is like always falling, rolling, movements, flow, and there already starts the choreo training. The flow is, for me, is very important, because if two people are performing, or let's say more people are performing, they need a kind of flow. If it's robotic or very static, it's very hard to read movements. It's not nice to watch. If there's a good flow, um, and everything is going to be more easy. It's like on pace of language you speak when you're performing. And so we do like all this flow exercises, and with each cast member we do flow movements, of course not the same, but like similar movements that they can translate the energy flow to the choreography. So this is what we do with everyone and in the group, and personal training and whatever, however the schedule looks like, and we can manage to train them. And of course we try to ask them as much as possible for the training. And let's say, especially for Chris, he was working his ass off. So whenever we said, okay, guys, let's do a little break, and he was doing push-ups or whatever, and he just didn't stop. Whenever he went to the stunt training, he never stopped. I just saw him once for one sip of water in like 5 months. I saw him one time drinking. Yeah.
It's
Well, I had a
incredibly
long way to go because I was very stiff at the beginning. Like I remember my stunt guy Adam, who's fantastic, but he moves so well. Like he's it's like poetry in motion the way he moves. Everything is perfect. And we talk about flow. He has like the perfect flow for a stunt double. And I'm definitely a lot more robotic and stiff, and kind of my shoulders move at was one, you know. That's kind of like I'm like the human fridge when it comes to that stuff. So it took me a long time to get to a place where I had at least a little bit enough to be able to match Adam's Adam's grace.
And you did great, man. Yeah, I remember your
Yeah.
Terminator walk.
Chris, one of the other things I want to talk about, now that the final episode is out and kind of just being able to talk about some of those spoilers was just, I feel like Kieran has always had this really steadfast idea of what his mission is, what his goal is. And obviously now at the end of the series, everything has been so uprooted for him, from finding out that Michaela wasn't presenting herself truthfully to him all of that time. And, the emotional space there is him and Inez, where he's like, leave without me. It's not important. She's like, I'm actually not leaving without you. And there's this kind of real connection and the alignment that they have. And so when you were looking at the scripts for that final episode, how did you shape where you felt like you wanted to leave him off at the end of the series, with the fact that so many things have been uprooted and presented very differently to how he's always imagined?
Yeah, I think, Kieran in episode 5, learns so much and realizes that he was always 2 or 3 steps behind everyone around him. There's betrayal and stuff, but I don't also think he's not the type to hold on to it. And he's happy to hold his ground in prison and serve his time, because he believes in that kind of, in that kind of system, as it were. And he knows how the game is played, and is happy to stand by his thing. What's amazing is that she sees the truth in him, and she sees that his heart, and this is what we talk about, their hearts aligning. And when she does free him, he's still conflicted, because he has to work hand in hand with the Harkonnen, which is something from birth he's been told is not something that's ever going to happen. But he there's a great sense of fear, I think, but also hope. I think the way I would justify it is like, once she releases him, the only skill set he has, he's never going to be able to fight Mother Valia. He's never going to be able to take on Desmond Hart because of these ethereal powers that they have. But the one thing he can do is protect Nez in any way, and get her to safety and get her to a place. After that, I don't think he's thought about it much. I think it's all about day to day, and she saved him, so he's going to do everything he can to keep her safe. And I think that's where he is. I don't think he's had a chance yet to think about what's next.
Yeah, and I love the point that was brought up earlier about, obviously in terms of the stunt work in the series, it's very different towards the end because it's not in the training mode. That is fight for survival and everything that he's been trained for his entire life. And so for both of you, just wanted to ask about how the stunt work later in the season, once it's that dynamic, felt very different from what you were working on earlier on when he's essentially the sensei to Inez.
Well, Inez grows up, right? It's kind of like Inez is like she's out there battling alongside him. And I think by that time, me and Sarah Sophie had such a good kind of understanding of each other. And, when we trained together and with Kai, it was like being able to like push ourselves a little bit more of like, oh yeah, let's do that. Like the move that a couple of months ago might have been too hard to do or something. And, the stunt performers we had were phenomenal in that scene. And when we shot that scene on the spaceport, which is an unbelievable set, and it rained, so it was so slippy. So it was added that danger, but it was so much fun to do, and like to be able to get through. Me and Inez have like a little look to each other afterwards as we kind of go through this group of guys, and it's that look of like, there's pride in his teaching. She's done well. She's proud of herself, but she's also happy they've done this together. It's like just a small little moment of like the kind of their stories kind of come a long way from the training room.
That's exactly what I felt when when I saw you performing, guys. You just described it perfectly. I was remember watching you guys from the on the bridge fighting. I was like, yeah, that's it. Very nice.
Well, that's all down to you and your team,
Nah,
you and
it's
Lee, and
teamwork, always teamwork, man.
I feel
So
like you having the sense of pride for watching them that Kieran
yeah,
was having
yeah.
watching Ines.
No, let's say I
that's it.
was at pride for Chris and Sarah, not for Kieran and Ines, because they're like my my little students, let's say, stunt
You are
students
you are
for
my Kieran. You are my Kieran. That's what you are.
no. Yeah, for especially for the spaceport fight, it was completely different because we had like I think 400 extras or something. So it was completely like yeah, a very big crew. It was outdoor set, it was raining, what he said, and I think they changed because the registry was over that time. They changed like on the day they changed a little thing, and we had to change the whole choreo on the same day with no rehearsals. We just like, hey, we went to Chris and Sarah and said, hey guys, this is gonna happen, and we have to change the timing of some of the attackers. So I think I just explained what happened. Then you just made one walkthrough, and then okay, let's go and shoot because we don't have time because we lost so many time with the rain. We couldn't shoot the whole night because we had to wait for when the rain was less. So it was yeah, very, let's say, risky for me. So I thought, hey, if this is not gonna happen, then we have a little trouble here. But luckily, everything went very well, and like the team, because we trained so much together, like with the cast and the stunt team together, so everyone knew each other so well. So everyone was adapting and reacting on each of you, and you guys reacted very well on the performers. I was super happy, and yeah, I think production also really enjoyed the show you guys did there.
Yeah,
It's the best thing when they shout cut and you've done you've just performed a stunt or a fight or whatever. And first thing you do is run over to Kai and be like, "Was it good? Was it a good one? Did you see it? Did you watch it? Did you what? Was it good?" And I remember that one especially. You were very happy with what we'd managed to do. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And lastly for you, Chris, I wanted to just ask about, the way that you've kind of shaped these two sides of your performance because it's really nuanced in terms of the differences and the expressions that we see when he's in the Emperor's palace and has to be very concealed with who he is and not reveal too much. And it's much more about these real kind of nuanced micro emotions and expressions, as opposed to when he's outside of that space and he can be much more open as himself and how you kind of found what you wanted those two sides to look like.
There was a kind of natural element of when you turn up to work, right? Everyone who goes to work, they have a slightly different way of presenting themselves in terms of politeness and stuff. And my accent, this is one of the first jobs I've kind of done in my close to my Liverpool accent. And I found in the show that when I was in the palace, I spoke a little bit more refined and a a little less strong on the accent, and that kind of it was a natural sort of, you're at work, you're treating it professionally, there's a kind of regality about the whole thing. You have to toe the line, and then you get him in the Spice Den, and it's kind of more who Kieran really is, right? You kind of start to see that side of him as like, he's late 20s, early 30s. He's a single guy. He's in this club with Spice. He's fighting against, he's a rebellion. He's not scared. He's highly skilled as this guy, so he's got a little bit of confidence about him too. So I think those things like kind of came out naturally without me really realizing it. But that, I think that's down to the scripts, because it was kind of all there. And as I say, once you know what your character's conflicts are, what his needs are, like, you really can just start to trust. And when you shoot something for so long, we did 5 months. By month 5, you barely have to prepare in terms of story and like pulling out stuff, because you know it all so well. You're so well versed. And once you see the script, you go, oh, that's exactly how Kieran would. This is how he's feeling. This is what we're gonna do for this. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure being able to portray this character and work with fantastic directors and fantastic writers and a fantastic stunt team who helped us get to a really good place.
Well, the work that you've both done on the series has been really impressive. So congratulations on an amazing show, and thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much. Thank you very much.